No, you're all right.
I just couldn't see
That's
the
good for
corner
you.
where
I
the
know.
tree was.
Not so good when they get out, but good now.
Yeah. You know me.
You want to hold the line on that?
I'm so
No, not
thankful
anymore.
she's got her license, until they got her license, I feel like, I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
But even so, she's kind of like Rachel, oh, I've got plans, bye.
Okay,
You know how that
here's what
goes.
I've got.
Okay, so you're on the little camera at the bottom,
Little camera at the bottom.
with a picture of us. There you go. That's our meeting. Meeting's live stream.
Got it.
Awesome, we are live, and then we go
To share screen.
Yeah. perfect. Share. You are on it. You're on it. You're amazing.
Okay.
Love it.
Move a little backwards and slow.
Okay, everybody, we are live. Everybody ready?
Sure.
All right. Okay. Calling the August 2nd, 2022 Bethel Board of Education work session to order at 5:35 p.m. When you're ready, Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Here.
Mrs. Sebastian. Here. Mr. Elam,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue. Here. Mrs. Franz.
Here. All present and accounted for. There have been some additions to the agenda, which are noted on board docs. Engineering contract, a couple resignations. Any further additions to the agenda that we need to take care of before we vote to approve? Alrighty then, item 3, review and approval of the agenda. We don't have a vote on this for a work session agenda.
Oh. Yeah. it's a vote.
Oh, wait, I'm not logged in. Oh, my bad. Okay. Helps if I'm officially logged in. I'm just looking at public view. I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
What did you
My-
do?
We have to vote on the approval of the work session agenda.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Elam.
Okay. Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. Franz,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes. I'm sorry, I said my connection was lost. I was trying to see. So I apologize.
You want to use mine?
No, we're good. You're right. We're good. Item 4 is hearing of the public for agenda items. Did you get any slips?
I was running around like crazy. Nope, I don't think so.
I didn't either. Nobody else received them. Item 5, important dates of the district. Hold those up on the screen. We know that this weekend is going to be our hog roast, which I don't see up there, but it's been pretty well publicized. So we have the hog roast starts at 5 o'clock. In addition to the Strength into Hive fun run. It's a 2-mile fun run for folks that they can sign up for as well. It's a fundraiser for both athletics and the cross-country and track teams.
Or you can walk.
Or you can walk, that's right. It's fun run / walk, my bad. Yes, duly noted. Many
1
of
mile
us
walk.
will be walking.
Yeah.
That's for sure. 1 mile walk, 2-mile run, correct. It also starts at 5 o'clock. And then there's a parade of our fall athletic teams at that event as well. And free food, which is always amazing. Good quality food, not just free food. It's great food.
And they do accept
And-
donations.
Correct, and there are tons of really fun activities everyone can do too. There's a dunk tank, which is always fun. I think we're doing the pie and face thing again. And all of our group, like PTO and the booster events, and everybody puts together some kind of something. I think a lot of the athletic teams are putting together events too, like cornhole and things like that. So lots of fun for the family. I think the fire department usually comes out, has fire truck, fire related activities for the kids. Really good community event, so I hope everybody will come out for that. Of course, we'll have our meeting next week, new teacher induction and teacher in services start, getting ready for open houses and students to return. So, anything further to add to the list from anyone or anything we've overlooked? Moving on then to item 6, treasurer's items requiring board action. Mrs. Hagan, I'll turn it to you.
Asking the board's approval on the CBC engineering contract. This was a contract already signed by Mr. Ferks, I think, back in April or March of 21, yeah. For testing to be done on site for the K-5 building and the stadium, soil testings, things of that nature that need to be done, bore testings, that kind of stuff. And they have been done throughout the project, but there was never a purchase order put in place and the contract was signed, but I can't find any record of the board ever approving it. So, here we are. I would like your approval on that contract. It's not to exceed 178,000. And there were small POs open from when Brennan or your previous treasurers were here and they were paid, the invoices were paid on those small POs. But ideally, there should be one PO for the contract. So I need your approval. It's gonna be retroactively, of course, back to the time that Mr. Ferks has already signed off on it, but I don't know what else to do. That testing is needed and necessary. It's always done in every building project and, here we are. So,
Did we not?
This will come. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I hate cutting people off, so I do apologize for that. But we do need a motion and then a second before discussion. So is there a motion to approve the contract for CBC Engineering? Thank you, Mr. Elon. Is there a second?
Also.
Mrs. Donahue, thank you. Second from Mrs. Donahue. Now discussion, please.
So was none of the bill paid?
no, there were small POs open for like $10,000 and so those POs that were open in not last fiscal year, but the fiscal year prior were being used to pay the small invoices that came in. Well, as invoices continued to come in, I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And so then I went searching and digging. So, yeah, there are 2 invoices that need your approval to pay because they exceed my authority to pay, which is 4,000. My authority is 3,000. I need board approval to pay 2 invoices for this contract because there wasn't a PO in place to cover it.
Was this recently added to the agenda because it wasn't on the?
Yeah, it was. That's why I put it in the additions to the agenda at the top. I just added it like an hour, maybe 2-3 hours ago. Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've been searching for it and I was out sick yesterday, but I was searching for it and couldn't find it anywhere. So I thought I better get it approved by the board before we proceed any further.
So what happens with all the POs that were paid already? Do we have to do anything special with those, or that's just water under the bridge?
Yeah, that's just water under the bridge.
Okay.
It all goes towards the total.
Yes. What I've done is I've talked to Glenn, the project manager, and we're going through every invoice that has been paid and making sure to identify those that reduce the 178,000, so we don't pay more than that. So we are doing that to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Do you know what the total is that you paid up to this point?
No, there are multiple POs that were issued with multiple treasurers, so I'd have to go back and look. And I didn't pull every single one, but I got this. Currently, the purchase order that's in place is 158 or 154,000. So what I could identify as project costs I already pulled off, but I'm gonna make sure to go through all of them with Linda, see if there's any more that need to be pulled off.
So like Laura said, water under the bridge, that is in another bucket, so this is a whole new bucket then? And so,
I don't know what you mean by bucket.
we're starting from 0 to get up to the 178?
No,
Or some of that will. It was already allocated, it just, she didn't have a PO in place. Is that correct?
I don't know what you mean by allocated. It wasn't
Well-
allocated because it was never encumbered. It was never part of the
Well, in
budget.
the budget, I'm sorry, in the project budget, it was there. This is not a new expense.
It was not in the budget when I walked in the door. No, it
Oh,
was
this
not.
wasn't in there?
It was not, no. So, but it needed to be and it
Yeah.
should have been because
Okay.
you had
Okay.
you had services being performed. So, yeah, so that's why, it's sort of hard to explain. When you have outstanding purchase orders already in place, the assumption is that there's a contract signed, it's been board approved, everything's been taken care of. But there were multiple small POs open for different things, and they were used to pay invoices as they came in. That's not ideally how you want to handle that. So, yeah, as I see more and more come in, I'm like, this isn't right. So I did some digging, and this is what we uncovered, is there is a signed contract. It's in there for the board's review. I think it was signed in March of 2021. So just trying to make sure we're all squared away. Nothing was, the POs that were in place, were within the treasurer's authority to do so and part of the budget and paid. So there's nothing that was done wrong. It just wasn't included. This additional 154,000 or whatever is the difference wasn't included in the budget because I wasn't aware of the outstanding contract. Does that make sense?
So you've identified 24,000 of the 178 so far, or has already been spent.
Right.
So then we're gonna work from there.
Glenn and I went through every line and he identified this 178,000 and that's what we were digging around trying to figure out. So in Glenn's budget, it's there.
That's, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. That's, so in
Okay,
building
that's what
project, but
I'm,
I'm
in
sorry.
Glenn's budget, it's there.
Okay, that's
But
what,
in what was actually put in the system, it is not. And
Okay.
it should have
Okay.
been 2 fiscal years ago.
so to clarify again, because I, maybe I misunderstood. We've only spent 20-some thousand, or that's all that's left to spend?
No, we've only spent about 20,000.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
asking, how much money do we
Yeah.
have left to spend?
I think it's I'm putting in the PO for 150,000, but yeah, there's about 20 plus thousand that's already been spent. So,
Okay.
but if it's more than that, that's already been spent towards the project, Glenn and I will work together to make sure it doesn't exceed 178, right? Which is what the contract is for.
And this isn't just for core samples, this is for other stuff then?
It's all the testing and soil samples that have to be done throughout the whole project. Yeah,
Because we used them back in early, like 2021, to get to figure out the layout of.
Before construction.
yeah.
Yeah, that's, so I was like, I didn't realize there was that many fees later, so news to me. 'Cause that's a lot of money.
It
We
is.
continue. Well, we can ask.
Well, no, I mean, I've done
Yeah.
multiple
Okay.
building projects. It's a common bill to get, so it doesn't make you go, oh, what's this? Because it does happen. It does
Okay.
require additional testing and things of that nature, but I didn't realize that there was a contract until Glenn and I were going through every single line, and I'm like, and we kept getting invoices and they're billing on a contract. I'm like, what contract is this? And so that's when, because I don't see every invoice, but that's something we're gonna look at, how we're gonna fix that from now on.
Awesome. Good. Okay.
And we've all heard CDC. Part of building project for ages. Okay, further discussion, questions, concerns?
Can we have A and B separated, frozen separately?
I mean, we certainly can.
They are,
They are already.
they already are.
Are they?
We're only
Okay.
voting on
Yeah.
A right now is all that the motion is for,
Okay.
isn't it? Yeah. Further questions, concerns? Nope, okay. When you're ready, please call the vote.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
I have to abstain, I have not read the contract.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Vote passes with 4 yes, 1 abstention. Item B is the 2 certificates of availability. Back to you, Ms. Sagan.
Okay.
No, you're good.
Approval of 2 certificates of availability. As I stated earlier, my authority to pay an invoice that is dated before the date on a purchase order ends at $3,000. Anything over 3,000 requires board approval. So of course, we have the CBC engineering, one for $4,084.85. It's dated 6/25. And then one for $6,098.75. That was dated 4/30/2022. And the invoice is dated, the purchase order is dated for 7/1/2022. So I would need your approval to pay those two invoices. And then the second one is WOCO. There was a project done using E-rate funding. The wiring and
So forth.
everything that, yeah. And so this was board approved back in, I want to say February, March. But there was never a purchase order put in place. So
So who got the ball with that? I just got to ask.
I wasn't here in February or March, so I don't want to point fingers, I wasn't here. So I know the bill didn't come
mean
until
2 Februarys.
January. The bill didn't come until January of 22, but then it never got to me in January of 22. So WOCA sent it to me finally, and I'm like, I've never seen this. What is
Whose
this?
responsibility would that have been to give that to you?
Whoever received it. So I don't even know who actually got the invoice back in January. So as they're cleaning up their books for last fiscal year, they're like, we billed you in January of 22, $140,000. And I said, okay, I didn't see that bill. Could you resend it to me? They resent it to me. And then to my surprise, there was no PO on for $149,000 and some odd cents. So, yeah, there were two projects that were approved back in February or March. One for $80,000 and one for $216,000 by the board.
Grant money go towards the project. That's not project, right?
I don't know what grant money.
Wasn't there supposed to be grant money going towards that one?
Okay, so it was first.
No, but the PO had to be issued by the
The
treasurer.
PO is issued by the treasurer.
Right.
Well, I
Right,
mean,
but
he
he
signed
didn't give it
it,
to
but
you.
the board did approve it. The board approved it in February or March, so Justin signed it, rightfully so. And the project was done, but it didn't get billed out until, if you see here, January of 22. I was here in January of 22, but there was no PO put in place. Now, you know,
So you're saying it happened not last February, but the one
no,
before?
I'm saying, yeah,
Okay.
So February of 2021,
21.
21.
that
Okay.
board approved.
Right. Yeah, this was a
Right.
project approved in February of 2021.
Okay.
So it wouldn't have been this fiscal year, it wouldn't have been last fiscal year, it was the one before. So you closed your books June of 2021, I started in August of 2021, right? So I assumed POs were in place. I didn't know to go back and search every board agenda to see what contracts had been
Sure.
approved. I've never done that in
Why would
any
you?
other district.
Right, why would you?
So until we got the invoice, I didn't know that this was an outstanding issue.
Right.
So there are things we need to sort of clean up, and that includes getting invoices to the right people, which in my past experience has been all invoices come to the treasurer's office, and then the treasurer's office will then handle getting approval from whomever had the work done or blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna try and work on that for this time, but this surprised the dickens out of me. We did have the PO in place for 87,000, which was the other project. But the E-rate funding was for 50% of that, so we had 47,000 in place on that first PO. So I was able to send them 47,000 from that PO and say, look, we'll pay you what we can, or 42,000, I think it was. But I have to get this board approved because this is beyond my authority to
Right.
pay. So I put a PO on 7/1, which was the earliest I could get it, on 4, and then, it's gonna come out of our PI money, but that's an additional 101,000 that I was not aware of coming out of our permanent improvement funds. So there's some cleanup that's still happening. I'm trying to do my best as quickly as I possibly can, but
It's kind of odd it wasn't billed for almost a year. That's
Really?
kind of
Yeah.
strange too.
they were
Well,
still working.
Remember, yeah, this went through summer and then they came back and finished up
Yes, I
over
remember.
Christmas break. So that probably is why they didn't do the complete billing until they finished the project, is my guess.
Right.
And I misspoke, grant, it was E-rate funding. That was
E-rate
my,
funding,
we
yeah.
had to credit back
It
on
had
E-rate funding,
50%,
so-
because if you look, the contract that's in here, is for 216,533. The billing is 140,
691.
yeah, thank you, I can't see.
143, 691.
Matt, I might need to sit down there and you sit up here because I can't see nothing. But, Mr. Crispin, my apologies. So it's, yeah, so you got E-rate funding for 50% of it. But this was not included in any of the budgets that I had looked at because I thought it was already paid.
Do you think because of the E-rate is why there was a PO for that separately? I just wonder, how did that get?
No, what I would have done, had I been sitting in the seat at that time, is once it was board approved, I would have put in, I would have talked to Loco and said, here's, what's our E-rate funding gonna be on this? And then I would have put in an estimated PO to cover that. That wasn't done. So I don't know if they thought maybe, and I'm speculating, because it could have been, Rob at that point, I think, was Mr. Wanamaker was the interim.
It
at
could have been one of those
March,
things
April.
that, yeah, because
There
Brendan
were
was on his
three-
way out
yeah,
and
yeah.
and it may have just got missed. I mean. it
Or
may have
he
been one of
thought,
those
well,
things.
they're not gonna get to work on it until the
Yeah.
summer, it'll be next year's POs, and he just failed to tell me, or, or failed to get it in July when he.
It probably slipped through the cracks in
Yeah.
that. I can definitely see how it would slip through the
Yeah.
cracks in that.
Unless he knew that it wasn't, or he was waiting on, I can only speculate at this point. I know we've had all the work done, and they've been very, very patient. So, we're just trying to get all this cleaned up now, been working with, Megan, because I don't really have staff right now, to go through any outstanding POs that are out there and been out there for a while, because you've got a lot of POs that are still open from years and years and years ago, so we're trying to clean that up, and as we go along, we're probably gonna find little things like this as well. But this is not a little one, that's why it's in front of you guys, but the little ones I can clean up and fix, but this is not a little one. No, I was not happy when I found that. Yeah. But I need your approval to pay for it, because it exceeds my authority, and they did do the work, so.
So the 143 is the total job.
Yeah.
And you've already paid a
portion of
to-
it, yeah, yeah.
And so the remaining balance is the 101. that you
Right, that's what I
to
need to approval on,
approve.
is the 101, because there was no PO in place to cover. They put in the 87,000 and some change, which I found to be interesting, because that was the full cost of that project. But they didn't do the second PO, so I don't know why that didn't happen. Unless they thought maybe, unless they thought it wasn't gonna be done until next fiscal year and they were waiting, but it's
Would have
always,
both POs been issued, were both POs or work approved at the same time?
Yes.
I don't remember.
yes, they were
Yeah.
on both on the same February
Because
board
one was
meeting.
switches and the other one was wiring.
Yes,
Remember
thank
we did
you.
that all at the same
No,
time?
I really don't remember, but that's, I'm sure we did.
I like the theory that Rob did, and he just forgot to tell you, because of the lag time in between the
Right,
two aspects of the project.
yeah,
Yeah, they came and put like all the switches or contact points or whatever, that was one project that
Right.
was summer. And then they came and did the wiring or whatever in December, and that was a second project later in the year, so they probably just thought, for the fiscal year, no big deal, and that was the big dollar for them. So, surmising, we don't know, we can't read.
Well, the other one was big dollar too, it's just we got half of it.
Right.
yeah, they were both, one was
Time.
87,000, this was 200 plus something thousand, so the E-rate funding went directly to Loco, so they got that
Oh,
money.
okay, good.
They're just billing the difference, so.
And if this does pass, please apologize to Loco for our delinquency in getting that. cleared.
Oh, I already have, I think I've apologized.
That's a
I know.
long time to wait for $100,000.
It is, yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we had a lot of discussion before our motion and our second that time, we did things out of order, so, because it was connected to the one before, so I get it. So is there a motion to have approval of the 2 certificates of availability before us at the moment?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian. Is there a second?
Also,
Thank you, Mrs. Donahue. Any further discussion? No, hearing none. When you're ready, Ms. Saban, please call the vote.
Mrs. Donahue,
yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
We'll send it out this week. I'm sure we'll go, and I thank you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, moving on to treasurer's items.
We have the meeting minutes from July 5th for your review, minutes from July 11th, minutes from July 26th. Now, I did these minutes, so please take your time to review them and make sure I haven't forgotten anything. I'm a little scatterbrained upstairs right now, so if there's anything that needs to be adjusted or please let me know, and I will take care of it. I am working on month-end close, so I will have the payment of all bills in July to you as quickly as I can, and the monthly financial report. Review of transfers and advances. Last month, I asked you to approve an advance from the general fund to the IDEA ARP grant, because we can't close the year with our grants in a negative, our funds in a negative. So I'm asking if I can put that money back in the general fund now. So this is to reverse that transfer, and the same goes for the Title III, $50. And then asking for board's approval to transfer $700,000 to the capital projects fund, which is the last transfer that we discussed for the building project from general fund. Then Heritage Cooperative. We were part of the consortium or the bid pricing that went out, group pricing that went out. This is the contract for your approval. It's for $1.449 per gallon. It went up 20 cents from last year. So, you know, that was to be expected. Everything seems to be going up, but we did increase the number of gallons because I wasn't sure. So we were typically at like 90-some thousand gallons, and I increased it to 142.5 and locked in that rate at $1.44.9 for the increased amount. We went a little over and had to pay a little higher rate on the 92.5, but with the new building, they'll have to fill that tank, and you know, even with the workers over there. So I wanted to increase the number of gallons and lock in the pricing as much as I could. If we use the same number of gallons that we used last year, yeah, we're still, which I don't think that's gonna happen, but we're still looking at an increase. But at least at this rate, we can lock in that lower rate instead of having to worry about if we go over the 92.5 that we had, that we'll have. So then this is on H. I am working on permanent appropriations. They're due by September 30th. I want to have them done this month, so hopefully I can get that done for you and get that out to the Miami County Auditor's Office as soon as possible. So working on our certificate of available balances. As you know, you've seen amended certificates every year or every month. This is your available balances at the beginning of the year, and then all your, what I hope will be our appropriations for the year. Now that changes because of student activities and things change. Budget adjustments are made. That's why you see the appropriations every month that needs your approval. But I'm working on that and hope to have that to you guys as soon as possible. Interim monies, we did this last year. I know everybody remembers, it was so exciting, but at the auditor's office requires now a report of our investments, especially commercial paper investments and what we've done with them. So this is the report. Need your approval at the next board meeting because I have to provide that to the auditor's of state's office and have to provide that the board did indeed approve it. And then the fun stuff is donations. We had a donation of a 2017 Cushman hauler by David and Mary Schock to the Bethel High School football program. I didn't know what that was, so that's why I put the picture on there. I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. I'm sure it's green and not blue, but I just had to, I thought if anybody was like me, didn't know what that particular model was, I wanted to show. And then today I added an anonymous donation of $800 for students to attend the Williamsburg trip. So, yeah, so we'll just need your approval at the next meeting. That's all I have.
Questions, thoughts, concerns from the board?
Williamsburg trip.
It's
Is it
not
Washington
DC
Street?
anymore, it's Colonial Williams.
Oh,
right now.
so- okay, thank you.
Yeah, for now. So many things are so close.
Sure.
Even the Air and Space Museum when I was there this summer. The Smithsonian Air and Space one. What a bummer. Not
Ours
real
is
soon,
ours is
sometime in the
superior
fall.
anyway.
Ours is pretty great, but still some pretty cool stuff there. But yeah, so until everything's fully open, they change the trip. Is my understanding. Anything else from anybody? Questions or thoughts? Thank you for putting all that together, and thank you for the donations to the Shocks and Anonymous. It's pretty great.
Thank you for your foresight on propane.
Well, anything we can think ahead of, we'll try.
Any discussion items from you, Mrs. Hageman?
No, not at the moment.
All right, moving to item 9 then, superintendent's items requiring board action. Welcome aboard, Mr. Crispin.
Thank you, Madam
First
President.
official
Good
meeting.
Good evening, board members. Great to be here. I know typically we don't like to do approvals on our work sessions, but especially this time of year when things are happening with personnel, we're meeting, we can do it. We need to move people along and get people on board. So I appreciate your being patient and your understanding of this. So, Madam President, how you want to go through you have to vote on these individually, right?
Yeah, so trying to do those, probably should go individually, I would think.
Pardon me?
You want to go individually or you want to vote?
Can you do consent altogether?
Probably is up to the board, frankly. I
Yes.
mean, I'm fine with it if you're fine with it. Everyone okay with consent? Unanimous, so one vote for all.
I make a motion that we add all 4 items to the consent calendar for voting.
Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian for the motion.
I'll say.
Second from Mr. Elam. Placing these board action items on a consent calendar by motion is the motion that's put all 4 of these items, A through D, item 9 to a consent calendar, correct?
Did everybody get my text? Because the one resignation came in at like 3:44. After I got off the floor in shock, sent out text, it's probably faster than
So you
make a call. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, so we're moving it to the consent calendar first and then
Yes.
Okay.
we'll let speak now.
Okay, so.
Okay. So do you want to, so I have to make a motion in a second?
So, Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
So we're on the consent calendar. Do you want to have discussion? And then, because usually we would have discussion and then we would vote on the actual consent calendar. Cool. You probably have your own standards and ways of doing things from where you come from. So
I'm just
everybody's
trying to catch
different.
on. I remember.
Yeah.
Consent Yeah,
Normally there's no discussion
like
at
consent
all.
calendar, you mean consent agenda?
Consent agenda.
Okay, all right.
So we'll hear a little bit what we're actually going to vote on, and then we'll have to vote.
Sure. So we have resignation from Mr. Andrus, School Social Studies, and that I think we received that the 15th of July. And Natalie, to your point, that wasn't on because the superintendent didn't make that recommendation to put it on. So it's just consulting at that time. But to your point, the sequencing was actually we should have done it at the last special just to keep things moving on.
Thank you for switching.
Sure. And then we're welcoming 3 middle school teachers, and so again, I'm the conduit for these 3 hires. I've not met these folks, but they went through the process with my predecessor and Mr. Triplett, and glad to have them on board. I think we'll probably end up, I think 1 or 2, we did not receive verifications of employment yet, so we can't, so we have to, there may be adjustments once we get those, but we did want to get them on board and hired so their previous districts could move on and use our. And we have resignation of our boys basketball coach, Mr. Jack Brooks. Appreciate his contributions to the program, and wish him best of luck in his future endeavors. And we will get that posted ASAP. So I spoke with Mr. Slope today, as well as Damon, and we're on that. We'll get moving because the kids want to know who's the next boss. And then Mr. Triplett announced his resignation this afternoon, and taking a new position in another district, and wish him all the best. I know it was a tough decision for him. You can tell he has strong feelings here for the school district and his building. So, wish him good luck.
Thank you so much for that. So is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
We still need to vote,
Oh, it's a motion. We have to have a motion for the, put them on.
but we didn't vote on it.
We did. We did.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So there's a motion, now we're motioning to approve the items on this agenda. Mrs. Donahue made the motion.
You're all right.
I'm taking notes, that's the only reason I know, because I was getting mixed up too. We're good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Elon. Okay, discussion,
My only question was answered
okay,
already.
appreciate that. Anything further?
This is more of a question. Do we still have any positions other than these recent resignations that we're still need to fill for teaching
Yes, we
positions?
do.
Okay. All
We
right.
have
Okay.
ESL Middle School. We are still looking for a speech therapist. And kitchen manager, that's on my to-do list starting tomorrow.
All right. I wasn't
But we have
sure.
applicants for that.
Okay. I just wasn't sure where things stood because there's been a lot of changes, so.
A little bit. So in the future, hopefully we won't have as many, but I usually start like a personnel tracker, like February, when people start turning in their resignations or their intent forms and that kind of thing. And then I will send that out every time something happens, so you know who's leaving, and then who we hired or who we made an offer to, that kind of thing. So we get to keep score of that.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
per our,
I was just gonna say, I like
Per-
that new personnel tracker.
per our previous discussions, I believe Mr. Andrus is another instance of finding a job in the town that he lives in. Right, I think that's correct.
That's my understanding.
Well, and I want to say thank you to the PEA. I know with the previous agenda teachers, we were able to move through the process quicker because of just the circumstances. So I just want to say thank you to them for allowing us to post things simultaneously. And I think we got some good candidates, so appreciate that.
Further discussion, comments?
Just a point of order, going forward,
Yes.
don't we just chunk these all together as a consent? That saves you a motion to move to consent calendar and just list them all together. That
That's fine with me.
That's what we've done.
All right. If there's nothing further, you ready for statement?
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes,
Mr. Eno.
Yes.
Welcome aboard and thank you for your service to everyone listed in those agendas. Okay, moving on to superintendent's items.
Thank you. In review, kind of sitting here, again, pardon the learning curve, probably should have these first two up for recommendation, but so we are hiring a substitute nurse, Melissa Reynolds. At least that's my recommendation for next week. Also recommending an approval of medical leave for Karen Taylor. And then we have bus routes. Everybody wants to know what the schedule is, and that's an annual approval. So take time, look at those, and then if you have questions, shoot me an email, and I'll probably include Mr. Bugate on that, our new transportation coordinator, as well as Kathy, and we'll get you an answer. But what you see there is what went out in our newsletter. So hopefully no adjustments. Yeah. So those will be the items.
Doesn't have times.
oh, I thought one of them did. I don't know. I've never seen this.
Yeah, at the top.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
start
okay,
between-
okay.
Yeah.
This is apparent. Who's the time?
Yeah. And they always say, be out there, 15 minutes before your expected arrival or what have you, and then it shakes
Okay.
out over the first couple
All
of
right, I
minutes.
see now, thank you.
There's always movement, there's always new houses that are getting finished, and, it's never ending for the first couple of weeks. For several of those routes. Some are pretty solid, but some not so much, so, it's okay, Mr. Bugate's gonna get a good welcome to
That's right.
to the neighborhood on some of those things in the
Yep.
system,
Both.
so,
Yep.
absolutely. Any other discussion, comments? All right, and then now on to item 11 then, superintendent discussion. Your next item.
Yes, so we already hit C, gave you a personnel update. Next week I'll also give you a rundown of what I've been doing for my first 5 days. And I'm sure it'll be kind of blurry because of hit the ground running, starting with Midnight Madness on Sunday, and, which was an awesome event. So more about that next week, and then I included the central office comparison, and as well as, again, that was like day 1 or day 2. I was hitting Tina with lots of questions with who's who and who are all the positions we have, and that's what we kind of came up with. Again, being in larger districts previously, kind of like, as we are growing fast, what might be in store for us down the road to make sure that we're serving families and our staff efficiently and effectively. So I don't know if that's this is like a preview for next week's full discussion of that, or
It varies, I think it just depends on what the board, what direction we go. If people already have questions and concerns, sometimes we sort of wrap it up, and other times the questions carry over. It kind of just depends month to month. Usually, this is meant to be the full-on discussion.
okay.
It doesn't always pan out that way.
Okay.
That's
Just
the best way
because
to
I don't
say
know that there aren't any recommendations really coming out of this discussion.
I mean, that's what work session's purpose is to have a discussion.
So I guess we'll start with the EMS and transportation on the, yes, the current EMS and transportation. And then, so we have, as you know, we have an assistant principal who's half-time principal, half-time transportation in addition to the EMS person. So I don't know if this is completely accurately reflected here.
So the bottom half of that sheet is kind of like proposed, like where we see this thing going.
Okay.
I think with, I'm not a betting person, but I would probably bet that district that runs 22 routes, you're going to need full-time transportation coordinator. That's a lot. To put on top of an assistant principal that's supposed to be serving 2 schools, that's a concern. Same with EMS. We had Beth. Sorry, Beth's last name.
Gail.
No, Beth that worked in.
Michelle.
Yeah. So she was eager, or maybe not so eager, to not help us anymore and get down and answer her email and all her voice messages. And I think she was talking about maybe 200 calls that involved registering kids or questions about registration. And again, where we're headed with growth, we need somebody here full time over the summer. Registering kids, that's issue 1. 2 is just making sure that our input to the state is perfect, because that's where we get our funding. And for instance, if you look at a report card from last year, it looks like 1,500 kids. We know we have more kids than that. What happened? Where are they? So, and that is a really intense position. And again, district this size, I sent you the comparison chart, usually assign somebody full time to handle things in that report because of the funding. It's crucial.
Right. This current was done before the special board meeting on July 26th. So at that time, this is what we had set up. Now, Mr. Ferguson already made the recommendation to hire Mr. Fugate at that time, but we still only had half-time transportation.
And really, that leads to really the great question that after what we learned today, well, Mr. Fugate, you'll have to determine if he's what you're gonna do to fill that principal position full-time, and then where does that leave him? And the transportation coordinator position.
Meet with him Thursday at 10:30. Those are my questions.
So the current might actually have to be revised.
Yeah, I will revise that, and I just haven't circled back to that yet. But we've already made some steps. The board has made those steps, and we appreciate that. Again, I think we're going to be better served on lots of levels, most especially funding. But to have people here to get our folks registered as they move into the area in June, July, it's going to be a huge help for our secretaries who are drinking water out of the fire hose right now. Answering those calls, registering new kids, and then teachers coming in and saying, hey, we need this, need that, or it's a lot. It's a unique problem. It's a good problem to have, but I'll get an update for sure.
Should we have the assistant principal listed underneath the principal? And I do like this chart. I appreciate that you put this together.
I did.
Yeah.
Few technology skills that I possess.
Well, it's nice to see everything.
Again, I'm better with shapes and lines than I am with lists and that kind of thing. But we talked about breaking that out a little bit more, maybe when we get away, and just to see all the other layers.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And then in the new chart, assistant treasurer is over EMS, payroll, and AP.
Yeah.
So does that mean, I'm assuming that that means these positions will be answering to the assistant treasurer,
Yeah, I mean, it just,
or is it just kind of?
yeah, it just kind of
The flow.
flows that way. But in my absence, of course, they would go to the, or the absence of the treasurer, they would go to the assistant treasurer. That is the ideal setup, you know, but, yes.
Okay, and then my other question with that is, will the assistant treasurer be handling payroll and AP, or are these two separate positions now that she won't be handling them?
Right now, it's one position because, to be frank, I didn't think I could get board approval for a new position, although since I walked in the door, I was begging for more help and I ended up with less. I ended up with nobody. But Megan, thank God for Megan. We're gonna try the assistant treasurer / payroll and see how that goes, and I think it's a good place to start learning how to be a treasurer. Payroll is anywhere from 70 to 85% of your annualized expenses, so knowing what to look for and how to do it is always a good step in becoming a treasurer. But I don't know how long we'll be able to maintain that as one position, but we're certainly gonna try.
And then moving over here to the business manager position. I was surprised to see that because we do now have a full-time EMS coordinator, working on the transportation director situation. And then we do have a communications director that we added last year. Does this mean we're still looking at hiring a business manager? Because these were some of the reasons that were cited before that we didn't have. We needed someone to handle EMS transportation communications, but now we have all of that in place.
Yeah, so, do you let me handle that one? Thanks.
I don't, you want me to, I can
Yeah,
talk
I
about
think,
a businessman, it's sort of, I recommended a business manager, and I know there's people out there that don't agree with me, and that's fine. But the problem I see from being in this seat that I've had for the last 4 to 5 weeks, where I've sort of been wearing everyone's hat, trying to fill in, is business manager handles purchasing, they handle transportation issues, they handle food service issues, and they handle construction. We're not you are in the middle of a $30 million building project, and after the completion of that $30 million building project, we're hoping we get $23 million in credits from the OFCC to continue to build. So it's not like this construction is gonna be the last thing that we do. We're gonna have continued construction, and food service, you know, we need somebody boots on the ground to make things happen in food service. And, you know, transportation is growing leaps and bounds as well. So to think that $19,000 to the EPC is gonna run your food service department, that's not gonna happen. We need at least a kitchen manager, a head cook, something else. But I think you need somebody to oversee all that. Now, that is definitely a superintendent's area, and, you know, I don't wanna overstep, but if he decides that's not necessary, or this board decides that's not necessary, that's fine, but I would hope, you know, that's my recommendation.
Thank you. My other question was about the transportation secretary, which used to be a transportation clerk. I'm just wondering if there's any reason for the change in title there that I should be aware of. It's just,
She is a transportation clerk. You pay her $11 or $12 an hour.
okay, so she's part-time is my understanding right now, right? Part-time position.
She
You're
works
asking
4
if-
hours as a clerk, 4 hours as a driver.
Okay,
You're asking if this is the same, even though they have different names. still
right, is
the
this the
same.
same, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, will she still continue to be part-time? Will that change?
I don't know.
We'll have to see.
I need to, again, this is like day 3 of consulting.
Yeah, these are
I'm
just
sorry.
things looking
Yeah.
at that came to mind.
No, they're
so,
great
yeah.
questions. You know, to the business manager piece, and this is no secret to the team. You know, I did the comparison because that's where I come from. Not that we have to be like everybody, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so, when I put all that together, I kind of felt like, I don't know. But the other things that I thought were more pressing, like EMIS, where I think we're heading with maybe transportation, not sure, and so, a couple of those pieces, I thought we need those before we need business manager. And comparatively, not a lot of districts around us on that chart have that piece, and so that's, again, not that we don't have unique circumstances, like we're gonna have to build another building. And yeah, so we don't have to be, but it gives you an idea of like ballpark that we should be in, especially with, like EMS and transportation. See, a lot of folks have, 2 folks working on transportation in that range, so.
So this is all you can kind of let these ideas percolate somewhat.
Incubate, percolate. Again, we've already taken some steps. We have with securing, full-time EMS person. It's huge. I think it's going to pay immediate dividends for us. But just to give the board some, to think about, we're not shrinking. We're getting bigger. And we want to have a structure that again can handle that.
Is there a hope involved with the proposed schedule as well in terms of time and that kind of thing? Well, not the schedule, but is there a hope of a time frame involved with this proposed restructuring?
I think we feel pretty good, right? Again, it'd be premature for me to say I think we're going to need this by spring of 23. I don't know. But I think having an EMS person and again, Shelley and Jen have experience with central registration. I think that's probably, our next step is thinking about how we keep the flow of and the count of students current throughout the summer. So I think that's the next step, but eventually we'll maybe put something together like that. Isn't that right?
Well, and the 2 things, with the business manager and with the assistant treasurer on your chart, I think it's moving us forward to a situation where we have people cross-trained. I think one of our weaknesses here, because we have been so thin administratively, is we don't, if somebody's out, let's just say somebody, I don't know, has a health issue and they're out a month, we really can't cover them. And I think by having people cross-trained, which is what you would have if you had an assistant treasurer or business manager, where if somebody were out or if a crisis happened, you'd have coverage. And we're not a stagnant district. Many districts are, right? We have a lot of growth. There's a lot of unique challenges. And so having a person who can address some of that, whether it be a building project or whether it be the contracts. I mean, we just approved 2 very substantial contracts. The business manager would handle some of that. A lot of districts don't have. So that's what I see. I mean, and then you're looking too at the day-to-day resource, like, I think, 3 to 5 years ago, our superintendent secretary was 12 months. We didn't do that before. And we have to have somebody answering phones. And, these things like you're noticing, we should have had somebody here registering students all summer. I mean, those are things that are going to happen. They may not be on the chart. One thing I would like to see on the chart somewhere is the superintendent secretary, because it's kind of functioning all.
Just mentioned that last meeting.
Okay. So, I mean,
Get that on the update.
so it just, I don't know where it fits, it kind of is, kind of touches
right
everything.
above the superintendent.
Yeah, right. I didn't want to say that.
Yeah.
So I feel like we kind of launched in with our questions before we really gave you much of an opportunity to discuss your overarching plan.
That's
or
great.
Is there any
You
additional
all
comments
had
that
a
you?
couple of weeks to chew on it, so I
Sure.
just was curious what you were thinking. And I know there had been discussions about the business manager and that kind of thing, so I'd love to see what other folks have done and like us in the area. So that's very helpful.
Just any further comments you wanted to add, or anything you wanted to explain or describe, or anything you wanted back to discussion. Further from the board?
Just wanted to ask about the business manager. I don't know if this is, kind of goes along with that, but, so we put something out as a trial, just to see. I think I heard feedback from somebody who saw some resumes. I don't know, is there somebody who's gonna sum all that up and share that with us? And is that gonna come down now off the consortium? Because we had it up for a trial run. I
It's
thought-
up there. Yeah, there's about, last time I checked, I think 6 to 10 resumes out there. I can take it down. I don't know if you want, summary or what you want done.
It was just a question, because I don't think we put that bow around the end,
Nope.
how we were gonna, or maybe it ties it into,
No, I didn't know how the board wanted to proceed either way. I mean, you wanted to
Yeah.
post it and see if we had any applicants, and then that, I didn't hear anything else. So,
you
and,
know,
then there was talk that business manager / EMS, then there was talk of, to be frank, I didn't know what
Yeah.
direction we were going in. I didn't know which end was up, to be honest. So if if the board doesn't want that, then we'll take it down.
And I think at the time we were just seeing what candidates there were out there and what the pool would look like before we had any further discussion. So,
Well, and the goal was, I mean, if you see somebody, because really the goal was for you to hire the business manager, not for the board to hire the business manager. So, I mean, really, if you would take a little bit of time on your already full plate to go through the resumes just to see if there's anybody with skill sets we need, especially since now we're kind of with the assistant principal. But one of the things we're weak here is in budgeting. And I mean, it's not nobody's fault, it's just as a small district, we didn't have to do that. So the business manager can help us in that. Tina's already helping us in that. And I mean, I didn't say this earlier, but I mean, the business manager could be an assistant superintendent long-term. I'm not saying we need both an assistant superintendent and business manager, but again, with the idea being to share duties, one thing I would like to see, and I mentioned this to Mr. Crispin, is some kind of help for our maintenance director with clerical work. And maybe when the office gets settled, there might be some additional resource there. I don't know, but I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff that are probably not his strong suit. He's good at fixing things, and he's doing a lot of stuff with quotes and that stuff that somebody like a purchasing manager might be better suited for. So, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, if it's the will of the board that you want us to move forward, you have 30 applicants, right?
30.
30.
Well, that's more than last time I looked, but
Yeah, it's shot, well.
whether or not they all have a business
Yes.
manager license or what, I don't know.
Sorry, 24. 6 that have not submitted, so,
Yeah.
we can certainly do that, it just, again, trying to balance our resources and.
yeah, absolutely,
uh,
right, absolutely.
I thought our first steps were great.
Yeah.
And, so
I mean,
I'd just like to see the beast a little bit before,
Yeah.
but again, I'm catching up to y'all, so.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
If you say that, get the process going, I'll do that.
Yeah, I like the proposed, I like that you have a forward-thinking plan, and I think to Mrs. Sebastian's point, and I think largely what you're saying is that we need to plan for growth, and we need to have, a thought in our mind of what are our next steps, and we haven't always put that on paper. We've had discussions about it, we've had people say, hey, wouldn't it be great if, and how about next, in 3 or 5 years, we think about blah, 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 but no one's really written it down. Yes, we have a strategic plan. Yes, we have a master facility plan, but those didn't really include this. So now we have this and we have a thought about this and we can tweak this and we can work on it as we start to fill these positions, or we say, scratch that, move this up here, move that around there, and we can actually visualize it and really think about it. So planning to grow and actually have a thought to it, a thought process is.
Spoiler alert, next thing, teaching staff.
Yes,
Not just scoring points with the
No,
PA president.
you're absolutely
but,
right.
I know, after
What
talking to
departments
Mr.
need more,
Triplett
what,
today,
yeah,
we're full,
yes,
we're full. More movings, we're gonna be
for sure,
fuller or more full. I don't know, proper English.
for sure. And we'll have
Yeah.
retirements and
I
so
mean,
on and
that's-
so forth, so there's a lot to plan for. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, love it.
And before we move on, I didn't mean, Tina, I didn't mean to imply that there's, a summary was your job. By any means.
That's fine.
And, I just wondered, if this was something that you were gonna be considering, like, over the course of the next few months or whatever. I just wondered if we would come to a point, with allowing that to be out there for a little while longer, or is it, do you take it down at some point? And that's all I was, kind of.
Yeah, I think I said there was a close date of 8/1, I thought,
I
but I can
thought
go
so
back
too.
out and change it. Certainly not an expert on the consortium, that's just that was added
It's
to
a
my
new
plate
skill.
when everyone
No,
else
that's what
left,
I,
so.
right.
I mean, I need you to understand that the last 4 weeks, I've been underwater, I've been drowning, and I've been trying to stay afloat here, but it is, there's a lot of work that happens that I don't think anybody is aware of happening in that central office over the summer. Just the 4 or 5 weeks that I've been up there with poor Megan, and Beth coming in to help just answer the phones, you're short-staffed, you have been for a while. And I know there's a need to cut costs and keep costs down, I'm a treasurer. So, that's my job. But I think you're cutting in the wrong areas and not spending where you need to spend, and EMIS is one of those areas. But, how do we improve the process and move forward? And, I'm happy to work with Mr. Crispin and the board on that, as we move forward, but I think we all just need to understand that there's a lot more required of a district with 1,800 kids than there was of a district with 900 kids. So, just now we have to report for EBT cards and our families get cards for meals over the summer, and we have to do all this other reporting, and so it's important to have the proper experienced staff and well-trained staff in place to do that. So that's just my 2 cents, and I'll shut up now.
And it came at us very quickly.
Yes.
And we've had for years, people wearing 3, 4, 5 hats.
Mhm.
And it's when you have that many students, it's not as easy to wear those multiple hats anymore. When, now it takes 3 times as long to do one hat that it used to take, a little bit of time.
There
So
was a day not that long ago when we didn't even have a superintendent secretary.
Right, for sure.
Larry Smith didn't have one.
Right. Right.
I think I have the right super.
No, you've been through a lot of
Nobody-
them.
It was nobody motivated for a time.
It might have been with him, but we did have one part of the time he was in place.
So,
it's still very reasonable straight. Awesome. So, okay.
Exciting conversation. I'll have this updated for you next week. That'll be round 2 of our
Absolutely.
Further questions and comments?
Oh,
Just with the director of maintenance there, I
Yeah.
don't know if you have plans to put under their the assistant maintenance, the custodians reporting to the director of maintenance there. I noticed you had the director of tech and then the network administrator there, so.
yeah,
Athletic
I'll
director's on
include
there,
that
too.
with the.
Yeah. And I know, not to discount what Tina had just said or to sound like I'm diminishing that, but there is concerns, in the community that we are top-heavy administrators and the costs associated and questions are, what about our students? And the students, we still have students in trailers, and shouldn't we be taking our money and using that to build classes on the north side of the building? And we do say that we put students first. And so I've been asked questions like, I'm not seeing how adding so many administrators would be putting our students first and taking on that burden. And the administrators we're bringing on, not making it is what it is, they're being paid at a higher rate than administrators before them. So, and new positions being created.
But we've known that several of these positions, Virginia Potter told us years ago that we were going to have to be doing this. Lynn Sarah was the HR person and the payroll person and the assistant director. all these, she said back then, and when Gail Rhodes retires, you're gonna have 2 people. When Lynn Sarah retires, you're gonna have 2 or 3 people to take her place. So, and this was when we were at about 1,100 kids probably,
This was
something like that.
Yeah.
And now we're 800 kids over that. And so as the number of students increases, then obviously the teaching staff has to increase, and administrator / central office spots would have to increase. Which you did, saw the chart up there on the board that like districts, we have 5 in the central office. I think it's 5.5, and Troy, which is a lot bigger, has 12. But we also, I just found out this last week that all of our boys sports are now Division II. We are moved from Division III to Division II. So this is.
Just
This
an
growth.
example, back when I first started being a treasurer, you could count on one head count for your funding. That was the first full week in October. And
Right.
schools would advertise, we're having jumping castles, we're having all this fun stuff. If you make it every day, that first full week in October, so we can count every head and get our funding. That doesn't happen anymore. We're reporting on a daily, on a monthly, and your funding is doing this with that reporting. So if you don't have every head counted, every special education box clicked, there's funding gone, and so we really need to look at that and clean that up. You have to be on that data. And like I said, we're reporting for free and reduced lunches over the summer, so our families can continue to get their PEBT cards. There's all kinds of extras that we're doing that wasn't done, just a couple years ago or 3 years ago, so, it's important to note that. We hire 4 to 6 teachers a year. Is that enough? No, not with the growth you're looking at, but you are doing some hiring in those areas. So it's only logical, in my opinion, to say that you need to hire an administrator every once in a while. And I know a lot of districts and a lot of communities feel like administrators are overpaid and whatnot, but I feel like you guys got a bargain for the month of July because you paid me to be your assistant treasurer, your technology, your transportation director, answering the phones. I was trying to hold this place together with duct tape and a prayer every morning, and I don't think I did very well, so I apologize to the community. But we're doing our best. So yeah.
I absolutely would not argue the point
Yeah.
that hiring a news director was.
Oh, no,
something
I
that's
mean, I think,
absolutely
yeah.
necessary, and I'm all for, I understand the growing pains and the
Mhm.
need to, to address that and to have people in place. I just think that we need to be careful about moving too quickly before the,
Right.
being more cautious and being fiscally responsible.
I think we are fiscally responsible, given we're to spend $2,000.
That's why it's breaks on, if you were to put a gun to my head right tonight and say, business manager, I'd say, no, not yet.
Right, and
But I need to see it.
Right, and that's all I'm saying. Yeah, it's just.
But I would say, find a middle school with 500 kids and a principal and a third of a person being assistant principal. Right. Not gonna find it.
And Jessica, if you have community members that think we're overstaffed administratively, I would definitely encourage you, as Danny did, to share this chart with them, because, even if we added 3 administrators, we're still maybe average or below. We're not out of line. And I don't think the community needs to understand, when you do a building project, should be a whole administrator focused on that, or someone. That's a huge project.
It's big.
And most districts, the assistant superintendent is tasked with that. Bigger districts, here we don't have that. So you're pulling from Tina, from Mr. Crispin, and from the board, really. The board sat in a lot of those meetings.
So, I mean, you're pulling from somewhere, and the teacher committee did a lot of the think tank, but I mean, we're gonna be building for the foreseeable future, so it's not going away, and I think if we don't put something in place, like what we're suggesting, people are gonna leave. People like Tina are not gonna stay if she has another July.
No.
I mean, and if we're too, if that's what happens. I mean, I'll be quite honest, I don't know what to say to people who think we're too thick administratively, we are not. Maybe, I don't know, I've said enough.
Well, I think,
I'm pretty old, sorry. I'm pretty old and I'm old Bethel, but I'm really changing my mind. And I think a lot of people in the community need to look at their opinions and look at how they look at things, because we're going to be playing Tip City
Yep.
in the boys basketball tournament
Mhm.
this year. We're going to be playing Tip City and Franklin and all these other schools this size. We're not in Division 4 anymore. I hate to keep throwing sports stuff out, but
It's based
We're-
on the
we're
number
not-
of boys in high school.
we're not a little, what's that?
It's based on the number of boys
Correct.
and then the number of girls that are in the high school.
We've gone from 179 boys 4 years ago to 210 boys this year. So the girls are still in Division 3, but that's just a sign of the growth.
So I just want to throw this out there that if we need to level set based on growth, that's one thing. But what if the growth doesn't come, or multiple things happen, like annexation doesn't happen, or this recession, whatever you want to call it, the economy slows things down? I just want to say, we just need to be mindful and take the right pace to make sure that we've got it all balanced. And I think that's what the community wants to see. Sorry.
No, I lived through that in Marysville. We were growing, we were one of the top 10 growing districts, and then the tangible personal property tax was like 06, 08.
Yep, that's-
Honda was in our backyard, 30% of our operating budget.
Yep.
And then the housing market crashed, and we bought like 160 acres, had 2 buildings going, and then
That was Armageddon,
Moratorium
our
on
interest rates went from 7 and
building,
8% to half.
so to
Yeah.
your point, you know, the more we can plan out in front, be systematic, if something really crazy happens like that, we can press pause and not have committed, you know, kitchen sink to everything. So that's, yeah, why I just want to study the business manager thing more. Need to understand our staffing in the classroom more. Today's the first I've heard about the class sizes in the middle school, and that's kudos to those folks for what they're getting ready to go through this next year. Because, you know, we're certainly going to have move-ins, and we're going to have kids on top of kids, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, yeah, steady as she goes. Steady as she goes.
Anything further on that particular topic? Central office. Okay, and then you had said the welcome about the local schools, is that gonna be for next week, or do you have anything to add for this week?
Oh, no
Your whole
preview for that.
First day, your first day here. Okay, all right. So I guess, so now we're to board discussion, which we don't have anything under there at the moment.
Was there a personnel update, or you're just gonna provide that?
Already did.
Already did.
Somebody asked me what positions we have.
Sorry, that was earlier, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
He snuck it in.
It's okay, I just didn't know what that was, so.
He went backwards, he went CBA.
Okay, ready for executive session?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I just want to ask, are we good on the kindergarten side? Are all those positions full?
that we know about now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
If any of those, if I'm stuttering, my stutters come back after
That's the
July.
position.
Yeah, it has. If the enrollment pans out, that there are a lot more kindergartners that enrolled that we weren't aware of, then we might need to add a last minute kindergarten, but I think we're okay. Yeah, I think we're okay.
But we hired Mrs. Fry's position.
Yeah,
and that's
you've
what
got
I-
all those positions filled, I think it's just.
Is that what you were
middle
asking,
school.
or no? Specifically, I was trying to make sure that the young fives was covered.
Yes,
yeah.
And backfill.
Now,
yes, yes.
then as far as the middle school goes, contact, Mr. Larson tomorrow at ESC. And probably looking at an interim situation. So maybe half year, full year, just depends. But, you get a body in that seat.
Go with that one.
Yeah.
He might come back. Mr. Ziegler might come back.
You never know.
Heard that name. Heard that name already.
That'd be a great one to call and ask.
It's never gonna retire.
Never gonna let it.
He's never let us down.
Seems to be last minute every time too. Poor guy. Gets really close. Maybe they want to kill him. Okay. Anything further? All right. Is there a need for executive session? And for rumor of nature number one, is there not a nature one under item one? No updates, no discussion. Okay. And then hearing none, we move to item 14, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Franz.
I'm sorry.
So.
Okay.
position
When you're ready.
to see.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs.
Secretary.
Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. Franz.
Yes, here.
Adjourned at a 5:00 at 6:56 PM. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. See you next week on Monday. 6 PM facilities, 7 PM.
Are we gonna be?